Good evening and welcome to Throwback Sports. I'm Coach John Quintero. Great to have you with us tonight, and very happy to start our first show with my longtime broadcast partner. I had my last radio broadcast with them in October of 2015. I'm going to have our first Facebook Live broadcast with them right now, and the great left-hander of the San Diego Padres, Randy Jones. Randy, good to see you.
You too, Coach. It's amazing. Here we are talking sports again, talking a little baseball.
We're pretty good at that.
I like this. I like this a lot.
Hey, let's talk right off the bat before we get into the life and times of Randy Jones growing up and all the things you've done in your life. Let's give everyone an update on where you're at cancer-wise. I remember in November I was sitting out at the polo fields getting ready to watch the oldest granddaughter in practice. I get a phone call, and you had that fateful news that you'd been diagnosed with throat cancer, and you've had a battle on your hands, but sounds like everything's going well.
It's going well, Coach. It was a battle for all winter long. It's an ordeal. I think a lot of people out there can relate to that, and what a lot of cancer people have to go through with the radiation and chemo and the treatments. And I had the mindset to get it done, and I did. And I know I'm cancer-free right now. And I thought, Sharp Hospital, everybody, all my doctors did a great job. And I was very coachable for 4 or 5 months, you might say. But I got through it. And in fact, I just had a checkup today, and I'm doing very, very well. And, still the component parts of all the radiation, no taste buds, still weighing about, my old playing weight about 172 pounds. And, but overall, that's all going to come back. And the strength already is, and feeling a little bit better, but it's a process. It's a month. It's just not a couple of weeks. It's months of work.
Randy, I remember sitting in my Yukon there at the polo fields, and, I was obviously shocked, and I appreciated that you called me long before it ever got out into the media because you didn't want me to find out some other way. And I remember I said, boy, Randy, this is going to be an awful tough fight. And you go, well, I'm up for that fight. And could you talk a little bit about that fight? Because, it was tough.
Well, it is, and especially with all the radiation treatments and in your throat, and it's every single day, and you're not feeling well. You have to feed yourself out of a tube because your throat's being fried, to get rid of the cancer. And it gets a little frustrating. And me, Coach, I'm not good at just laying around and being a full old starting pitcher. I'd get home. I didn't feel very good, but I'd walk right out that door and I'd go find something to do outside. And the more weeks that I got into it, I was a little bit weaker, but I just took my time out there. It might be just trimming some plants or doing something outdoors and keeping my hands and my mind busy. And I did that every single day. And what I do is I do it for a little while until I kind of run out of gas, and I go find a chair, watch a little TV up in the barn, maybe watch some golf, whatever might be on at that point in time, and then I'd get back up to a little bit more. But I continued to do that, throughout the three months that I was getting treatment, and I was just determined that I wasn't going to lay around and just didn't feel worse. And that's exactly what I did.
We've always joked, you and I both are kind of out of the same mold as far as always wanting to do things in the community. And of course, you've done so many great things with the benefit of working for the Padres, but you also have done a lot of things outside of the Padres for many, many years, long before you ever worked for the San Diego Padres in the capacity you're in now. And you're a guy that's always been overcommitted, always going from morning to night. How difficult was that to scale back? And I realize you weren't feeling great, but you still have always been a guy that's pushed himself.
Well, and I guess to a degree, and even that little factor, I was pushing myself, during these treatments a little bit. But I just knew that, and everybody was great about it as far as the community, and it didn't really come out until later on, much later on. And of course, me, Coach, I'd have gone right through it, and like nothing happened if I could have, but that just wasn't going to work out in this scenario. But I knew that I had to put myself first for a change, and that I'd have to, I couldn't do pitching lessons. I couldn't make a lot of appearances, and I lost my voice 2 or 3 times where I couldn't even talk through this ordeal, and I just had to be patient with that. And so it's little things. I even went out and played 9 holes of golf a couple of times after I got a treatment that morning. That point, in fact, it was just a matter of getting out, getting a little bit of exercise, played 9 holes, and I went home, took a nap. But, it was just a point, in fact, of getting out and doing something.
How great has it been to be able to get back to the ballpark on a semi-regular basis right now?
It's really good. It's great. It's great for me, and it's been refreshing. And being now the executive director of the new Alumni Association for the Padres and trying to build that up. That's kept me pretty busy and not crazy busy, but just enough and entertaining and talking to a lot of the old time ball players. I've got to personally reach out to them, and I've enjoyed it.
That's the thing that people don't understand. I mean, there's a great history of Padre baseball, not only with the major league players, but there's still a lot of the old PCL players around.
That's right, and then there's a lot of them out there, and it's just I'm trying to put all the pieces back together and make the alumni feel welcome back at the ballpark, and it's just another aspect of what I'm doing right now. But I know today there's a point in time where my body will say, that's enough for today. And like I said, I got to be coachable. That's when I kind of head toward my truck and I go home.
Let's talk about the ball club. All-Star break, All-Star game tomorrow night. We're going to get to it a little bit later about your two opportunities in 75 and 76, and I know you've got some great stories about that. But let's talk about this present-day Padre ball club. Yeah. They get to the break at 38 and 50. They're playing hard. They make some mistakes. They're a young ball club. Yes. There's some deficiencies there, but they are playing the game as well as I think they possibly can with the roster they have. And
I think so, but also what I'm seeing is a lot of young guys kind of pushing each other a little bit, and there's some real talent in some of these young guys. Sure, they have a lot to learn, Coach, but that's what it's all about. We always talk about if you really want to be a good baseball player, learn how to fail. That's how you get really good, make mistakes and improve from that, when you make a mistake. And I think a lot of these kids are learning that. They'll go 9 for 12, in a 3-game series, and they'll go 0 for 15 in a 3-game series. But it's about making all the adjustments, and even some of the younger arms we're getting a chance to see a little bit right now. I'm seeing some great young arms. Do they know how to pitch? Not yet. They got to learn how to pitch. But I'm seeing some very, very opportunistic, arms out there throwing 97, 98 miles an hour. And it's pretty impressive. If they can master something off speed, a lot of them, if they can just master that off speed pitch, it could be a lot of fun.
Okay, a couple of things that have happened with the Padres over the last few weeks. First of all, the situation in Chicago when Anthony Rizzo runs over Hedges and obviously goes inside the baseline and takes a shot at him rather than going for what the rule says now. You got to give the runner a space to be able to slide in safely. And there was no doubt Rizzo went out of his way.
That is right.
And in the National League, Joe Torre, they said that he was in the wrong. They didn't fine him. They didn't suspend him. The next night, everybody in San Diego wanted Rizzo to take a fastball underneath his chin or get drilled in the ribs. The Padres pitched him, and he leads off the game with a home run. Back in the day, the unwritten rules, how do you think it would have gone if Rizzo would have done that to a Freddie Kendall or a Bob Barton?
I don't think he would hit a home run that first time up. Let me put it that way. And then in that old school baseball, what happened, and Rizzo would have known what was going to happen. But overall, like I mentioned, maybe it didn't happen the next day or right now, but a lot of pitchers are just like elephants. We never forget anything. It might be next year, or it might be 8-0 at that point in time, and somebody's going to flip him and get his butt dirty. That's what they're going to knock him down. He crowds the plate so bad anyway. It's almost a moot point, Coach. He's going to get hit a lot to where he stands, But and we could go on a whole other subject of this and how hitters love to lean into the strike zone now. Have no fear whatsoever. That's why they wear the
elbow pad.
Yeah, they need more than that, man. They have to find a neck pad if they keep doing it the way they're doing it.
I think Anthony Rizzo, and you and I got to know him a little bit when he was here in San Diego. Really a nice young guy, and he's gone on and really forged a nice career for himself to this point with the Cubs. But I think Anthony would probably expected to be brushed back or even hit.
Yes.
And I think he would have probably trotted down to first base.
Yeah, if you hit him, if you just knocked him down, he'd have got up, dusted himself off, and got right back in there. But now with everything and all the conversations with MLB and it's just everything's just so hyper under a microscope. It seems like in the old days nobody would have said, the umpire wouldn't have said anything. Nobody even warned. Nobody got kicked out of the game. He'd have dusted him, knocked him down, and we'd have gone on and played baseball. That's the way the game was played.
Well, now the other situation that came a couple weeks later out at Qualcomm or at Petco Park, you've got Andy Green and Dave Roberts going at it after Alex Wood See, Alex Wood was the guy that screwed the whole thing
Oh,
up,
yeah.
I thought. He shouldn't have been talking to Perella. If he didn't like what was going on, throw one under the chin of Manuel Margot or get Perella next time around. But he was the guy that kind of screwed it up. But then Dave Roberts and Andy Green, after that inning, they come out to talk to the home plate umpire, Greg Gibson, and Andy said something that Dave didn't like, and boy, I couldn't believe Dave Roberts going after him.
I couldn't, but I know he'd mentioned something about his pitcher, and and he might have called him like a little baby or something. That we weren't going to try to steal his signs, but just I guess the way Andy said it, and it just really got under Dave Roberts' skin, and hey, he reacted to it, reacting I guess in defense of his player, but. I really didn't know Andy Green could irritate somebody that much, much as I know, and I've been around him, and how hard he's worked at coaching all those younger players and all the hours he puts in his coaching staff. And I was a little bit surprised by that whole ordeal. That was amazing. And it was really Wood's fault. Perella's out there, doesn't know a word of English anyway, had no idea what he was talking about. He thought he was talking to himself. That's what Perella really thought at second base. He didn't know he was yelling at him. He had no clue. And old school, that's the deal. If you think somebody's stealing signs, it's the hitter that pays the price. You knock him down.
Well, one or two things happen.
That's what
you either change your signs or you knock the hitter down.
Well, or do both and feel better about the whole situation. But number one, as a pitcher today, you better learn. You better understand how in the world to pitch inside, knock somebody down, not hit him, not go head hunting. And I think today that most pitchers don't know how to do that. They don't know how to pitch inside. They don't pitch inside. That's why you got all these hitters, diving over the plate and, driving the ball. You can put a knee-high fastball on the outside part of the plate and they'll drive it to right center for a home run because they're leaning so bad. And there's no respect for the inside part of the plate. But if you don't know how to, command that area, know how to do it, then you probably shouldn't do it. You're going to hurt somebody.
If you have some questions, as we get a little bit deeper in the show, we'll take your questions, probably starting about 7:45. We're going to be going to 8 o'clock tonight. Coach John Quintera on Throwback Sports, along with Padre Hall of Famer Randy Jones. Randy, let's get talking about Randall Leo Jones, born back in January of 1950 up in Fullerton, California. You were raised in Brea. Tell us about your upbringing and about mom and dad.
That was great. It was great, Coach. Brea, right next to Fullerton, a little town. Wasn't much there at that point in time. A lot of orange groves and things. And just growing up was pretty simple. I was always outside anyway, in the neighborhood, playing whatever sport it was, whatever part of the year it was. That's what we were doing. All summers baseball, and then you had football and basketball, whatever it might be. But pretty normal stuff. And I remember my first organized baseball was Pee Wee League in 1957. I remember that because we had 12 games that summer. A little 7-year-old guy. And I remember I used to walk with John Matlock was my coach, and he was a high school guy. And I walked with him to every Saturday. It seemed like we would have a game. And I'd walk with him down to the ballpark. And the umpire actually stood behind me, off from the mound. He wouldn't get behind the catcher because he couldn't catch anything. So he was safer behind me. I'll never forget it. But we were Pee Wee League champs that year. We won the championship. And I still got that trophy at home, by the way, from 1957. It's classic. But that's where I fell in love with the game of baseball. I really did.
Now, you were saying kind of like a lot of kids back in your era and my era through the 70s and 80s where, football season came, they were playing football.
Yep.
Basketball, it was basketball.
That's right.
Baseball was baseball. How about you playing other sports? Obviously baseball was was your bread and butter down the road, but how about as a youngster? Did you play all the different sports?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we definitely. When football started, you played football from, junior high all the way up through, then. You're playing flag and at junior high, then you get into high school and you're playing the tackle football, and then basketball the same way. Junior high and high school was basketball, and then right after basketball was straight to the baseball field for baseball season. You couldn't do track because they were simultaneously with baseball, and in junior high it was track and then baseball after that. You did all 4 sports.
What kind of high school football player were you?
Decent. I was, more of a defensive back, I think. I played, a little bit of halfback, a little bit of quarterback, but mostly defense. I enjoyed that. I really did. I had a lot of fun doing that.
You like doing the hit and rather than get hit?
Yeah, pretty much. That's where I was really
guy.
good. I did have 1 year I hurt a knee and I couldn't play like my sophomore year. Just an accident in practice, and that cost me quite a few weeks. Didn't like that very much. And then finally, by my senior year in high school, I realized that I wanted to play baseball, and I wanted a baseball scholarship, is what I really wanted. So I made the sacrifice. I didn't play football. I didn't play basketball my senior year. I went straight to the baseball field and got ready for the season.
How good a high school career did you have?
I mean,
in baseball?
I was good. My team wasn't outstanding. I mean, I know my sophomore year, I probably kind of came into my own. I played varsity football all 4 years and pitched. But I think I was like runner-up to MVP in the league, in that little Palomar league that we had up there in my sophomore year. And in my junior year, I got up to a really good start, and then got an elbow problem, and I had to close it down for like 3 months, and a little tendonitis, and that's what we did then. And so I shut it down and didn't pitch. And I came back my senior year though, and good to go, ready to go. And I pitched all that summer, American Legion ball, and arm felt great. And Steve Busby was my cohort there on our team there in Fullerton. Had a good time, arm was healthy. So I came back my senior year, had a really, really good year.
Now, you guys played in summer ball together?
Yes.
Steve Busby?
Yeah, Steve and I were the pitchers on our Fullerton, American Legion team.
Of course, for the fans out there, Steve Busby pitched for many years in the big leagues, and unfortunately his career was cut a little bit short due to an arm injury. But he had a good career at SC and then went right to the big leagues.
Yes, he did, yeah. A couple no-hitters for Kansas City. Did a good job.
How heavily recruited out of Brea Olinda High School were you?
I wasn't at all really recruited. I had some scouts talking to me a little bit, but
SC talked to you? Because Rod Dato, those guys
well,
were
yeah,
winning national titles.
I was talking to Rod Dato at SC and at Chapman, college at the time. I was looking at those two schools, and I went ahead and I got accepted to both academically, and then then it was just basically what we could do. And I remember that the scouts all knew that I was going to go to college. I wasn't ready to sign. I didn't want to sign. I wanted to go to school and get my education. And I figured if baseball could pay for that, that's quite something for baseball to do at that point in time. And that's exactly what I set out to do. And Rod Dato offered me a half ride to USC as a freshman, and there's just a lot of money for my mom and dad to come up with, in my opinion. But I went over to Chapman, and Paul Deese over there offered me a full ride. So that made my decision pretty simple. I mean, I liked Chapman. I liked the program they were doing. They weren't A division. They were AA division, but still, a good baseball program and a good business school there at Chapman. And so that's where I went.
And you had a great career at Chapman. 4 years. Your last couple of years, you won, I think, a total of 27 ball games, and were an All-American,
right.
Fifth-round draft pick of the San Diego Padres. But I want you to talk a little bit about your college coach, Paul Deese, and the reason over the years, being around you so much and all the stuff we've done, watching games, talking about games, you've mentioned him a lot. And to me, I always got the feeling he really had a big impact on who Randy Jones is.
Well, he really did. I mean, he pushed us pretty hard. He was a barker. He liked to shout and get on people, and it demanded a lot from his players. And I took to that. I didn't mind that at all. It just kind of motivated me, fired me up a lot. But he really did stay on me a little bit, gave me every opportunity all the years I was there. Even he coached me in Anchorage on semi-pro ball when I played up there 2 summers. He was my coach, and the same way there. Had bigger expectations of me than I maybe had of myself at that point in time, and I had to grow into those expectations, I think, and I finally did. I finally came into my own, but I think he had a big impact on me as far as getting to that point and pushing me to where I finally did, and I appreciated that.
Okay, 5th-round draft pick back in 1972 of the San Diego Padres, a kid that grew up right down the road from the California Angels, right down the road from the Los Angeles Dodgers that were a huge name. What did Randy Jones know about the San Diego Padres when they notified you, and how did they notify you back in those days that you'd been drafted by them?
Well, it was funny, 72, and I really thought Detroit was going to draft me. I'd been talking to Detroit. John Hockenberry was the area scout, and I talked to John quite a bit and known him for years. And I thought I was going in the 6th or 7th round with Detroit, is what I was told. And so the day of the draft, I went and played golf with some of the guys, you know. And
of course, no cell phones back
well,
then.
no cell phones, no nothing. We had no idea. And finally, I got back home and had no idea what was going on in the draft. And my phone rang, and it was Marty Keough from the San Diego Padres. And said, "Randy, hi, Padres just drafted you in the 5th round of the draft." And I said, "Wow." And he goes, and I said, "What do we do now?" And he goes, "Well, we'd like to come over and talk to you." And so, they came on over, and I had to get a hold of my dad, and my dad came over, for all, that's how that works. Yeah, I'll never forget that. And we sat there and talked, and finally came to terms.
Well, of course, you didn't have any leverage. Your eligibility had run out.
I was.
I mean, you're lucky to get $1,000. How much did you get?
That's right. That's exactly right. I got about $1,000. Exactly what I did.
And a bus ticket.
Yeah, and I was, I was married then. Mary and I were married, and like you said, I was 22 years old. Just got my degree, and I'm 22. Man, it's old. And a lot of guys signing they're 18, and here I am, 22-year-olds, and I just signed. But the one thing I did know in the back of my mind, how young the franchise was in San Diego. And, I really wasn't fond of the idea of being behind Mickey Lolich and Denny McClain and some of these guys over in Detroit. I mean, you talk about getting buried in the minor leagues.
Good point.
And so all of a sudden, here I am with San Diego, 69 is when they started. So I thought there was more opportunity. And that's the way I kind of approached it and looked at it. I said, wow. And being 22 years old, I'm somewhat of a veteran. I signed for $1,000. In fact, I paid my wife's Volkswagen off, so we didn't have a car payment.
Good husband.
Hey, and so we got that, and we got $500 a month to go play, baseball. I went to Tri-Cities, Washington, up there. Was there 5 days. I opened.
You went 1-0.
Yeah, I went 1-0. I pitched the first 5 innings of the season, and the next day they gave me a ticket to Double-A. Next day I was going to the Texas League. And I jumped on an airplane, and I flew back to Louisiana and started playing for Alexandria Aces. Duke Snyder was my manager. And I'm talking, this is the first couple of weeks, Coach, that I just signed. And, all of a sudden, I'm in Washington there. Next thing I know, I'm in Louisiana on all these trips. And I was ready. I was 22. I'd already been through all the college, so I knew how to travel. I knew how to live out of a suitcase, and I'd done it all already, and I was very comfortable in that scenario.
Did you ever wonder about if you'd had the opportunity to be drafted and signed out of high school, how 4 years later?
I'd never made it.
You ever think about what you'd had to go through?
I'd have never made it probably. I don't think. Knowing myself, I wasn't. The one thing I knew, I needed to go to college and mature, grow up. I didn't think I was mature enough myself coming out of high school. Just thought, I need my education. To back up. I wasn't throwing 93 miles an hour either. I knew how to pitch. I knew how to get people out, but still, at that point, in fact, he wasn't the biggest guy on the mound at that point in time, and he had a lot to prove.
What was your fastball? I mean, what was the? And I know they didn't have a radar gun all the time back in those days. But, and when people would write articles, Jack Murphy or Phil Collier years ago, they would always say Randy Jones throws a 69-mile-an-hour fastball. But legitimately, how hard were you throwing?
I was throwing 85, 86.
That's kind of what I figured.
That's where my fastball would be. But, at 85, 86, that was pretty strong. The ball didn't sink very much then. It would just tail. It stayed on the same plane. I didn't like it. And as soon as I backed it off to 82, 83 miles an hour and lower, that's when I started getting good sink on a baseball. And once I learned that, then I started backing off a little bit, and I got a lot more effective.
Okay, so you finish the year in Alexandria. You go 3-5, but a really nice 2.91 ERA. You go to spring training the next year, and they send you back to Alexandria, and you get off to an incredible start. You're 8-1. A 2.01. What was going through your mind at that point in time?
Well, I was throwing the baseball really well, and actually Warren Hacker that spring had taught me the sinker ball, and I took to it and playing with it. And by the time I got into my second or third start, I had that thing dialed in. I was having a blast with it. I was just having,
the hitters weren't.
I was just having fun. It was just awesome. It was absolutely amazing, and just my confidence was growing in my command of it and with the slider. And I wasn't thinking about the big leagues coach or nothing. I was just having a good year. And I kept thinking, well, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, be consistent, every start and see what happens in September, a call up or whatever it might be. And luckily, it just happened, the numbers thing. Like you say, I was 8-1. They wanted to sign Dave Winfield. So they had to sell Freddie Norman, our left-handed starter, with the big club to Cincinnati for the money to sign Winfield. I think they got $60,000 in Gene Locklear, And so
he's a San Diego resident to this day.
That's correct.
The chief.
That's right. And so anyway, so hey, I got called in by Jackie Brandt, who was my manager that day. We were in Amarillo. And I walked over, and I figured I did something wrong. I was going to get yelled at again, And it was like midday. It was like noon. And I knocked on his door. He opened the door and says, "Come in here a minute." And he looked up and just hands me an envelope. "Congratulations, you just got called up to the big leagues. You're going to join the team in Montreal. And you need to go pack, get out of here." And I was just dumbfounded. I was so shocked, Coach. I mean, I know my mouth was still open for 5 minutes, and he says, "You're ready." I told him you were ready to pitch up there, and you can do it.
Now, where was Marie? Was Marie back there in Alexandria?
She was back
out here.
She was back in Alexandria. She just gotten there like 6 weeks prior to that, and we got an apartment. Didn't even have a phone yet not even a TV yet. And I actually had to call the manager of the apartments we were staying in, and he had to go get Marie to get on the phone so I could tell her that I got called up. I was going to the big leagues. And to pack everything up, that I'd already talked to my dad, and my dad was going to fly back and help her get back home.
So you end up going to Montreal, but you don't pitch.
No.
Until you get in a relief appearance at Shea Stadium, and the date of that was June 16th, 1973. Not a great outing in your Major League debut. An inning and a third, 4 hits, 2 runs. And you gave up a homer to what I've always considered the greatest baseball player I've ever seen.
Yeah, Willie Mays. See, the great thing is I pitched the first inning that I pitched, Coach, the 7th inning. It was 1, 2, 3 inning. A good inning.
Feeling pretty good about yourself.
I was on a roll. The first inning was good. And then Willie Mays let out the second inning, and he hit a 1-2 pitch that they haven't found yet. I mean, that ball got out in a hurry. And I thought, oh, my, And of course, then being the young rookie, that rattled me a little bit, and I'm out there just trying to throw strikes, and pretty nervous, and gave another couple ground ball hits, and probably walked somebody, and and Don Zimmer came out and got me, but at least I got my feet wet, and that was what it was all about, because we were already, I think it was 9-0 before I even went in. We were getting killed, so he just threw
the mop up.
Yeah, he just threw me up there to get my feet wet, and I remember Bob Miller was sitting there on the bench when I walked out, and he goes, "Lefty, don't worry about it. All you got to do is throw strikes. Just throw strikes." And so when I got pulled and I walked back in, and I looked at Bob Miller, and I said, "Throw strikes." Yeah, that worked real well. He started cracking up. He was busted up.
Now, your first Major League start was on June 22nd, 1973, right here at San Diego Stadium. You went against the Atlanta Braves, and things didn't go that well. You took the loss that night, and you gave up a homer to another one of the all-time greats.
Gee, what inning was that I gave up that home run? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
The first inning.
Oh, well.
Almost the second hit I gave up in my career was a home run to Hank Aaron. Amazing.
That's why you gave them up to big-name guys.
If you're going to do it right. That's what I did. I even had Don Zimmer laughing at me when I came in after that inning. I looked over at him. He's going, "Attaboy, Lefty, you don't mess around, do you?" You got Mays and Aaron in your book, and you haven't even been here a week.
Well, what were your thoughts in those first couple of games going against Willie Mays, a guy, because you were a Dodger fan growing up, and you watched, in those days there weren't many games on television, but the ones that were always Dodgers against Giants. What was it like going against Willie Mays and Hank Aaron your first 2 Major League games?
Absolutely amazing. Just couldn't believe I was on the mound, and I was staring down at home plate, and there they stood. I went, wow. And that first inning, a little rattled. Then I gave up a home run to him. And by the way, it wasn't a cheap shot either. But he had probably 12 rows up in left center at the big ballpark at the Murph. So he just flicked his wrist and the ball went out. I went, oh boy, is that what they do around here, huh? But overall, and I lost that ball game. I think it was 4-3. I think it was the final score. But I went 7 innings, And the only thing is I got done with that game, Coach, and I know I lost. And I got done, and my wife and I, Marina, were headed back to our apartment. And I got to the elevator, and I looked right at her, and I said, I can get these guys out. I can pitch here. I can do this. And I meant that. I believe that. And those 7 innings convinced me that I could win at that level. I knew I could.
And by the way, there were 6,039 fans there watching you that night. Now, your second major league start was against the Dodgers here in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And you got beat 7-0.
Right.
Okay, so now you're 0-2 in your major league career, and you're in 3 games. Your ERA is little over 5. What were you thinking then?
No, it's still. I mean, it's that learning curve, and just settling myself down, and I was just sticking to the game plan. But in my own mind, the back of my mind, Coach, I knew I could do it. Like these guys were good. They're the best hitters anywhere, And what they do is they hit mistakes. You make good quality pitches, you can get them out. You make mistakes, you're going to get hurt, And that's what it gets against the Dodgers. I made too many mistakes. And then once again, but, I knew there's another start right around the corner, and I started preparing for that one.
Well, and that start was at Dodger Stadium on July 3rd. You won the ball game that night, 4-1. You beat the great Tommy John. Tell us about that, because your first major league wins at Dodger Stadium, where you and Mr. and Mrs. Jones used to go and watch ball games all the time. And I remember one of the highlights after that game, if I'm not mistaken, Vin Scully interviewed you.
He did, and it was amazing. Actually, it was the next day. Vinny came over, by the because it was on a Sunday, and he wanted to interview me in the pregame type thing, and I was just so honored and excited about meeting Vince Scully. Growing up listening to him.
He was working with Jerry Doggett.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. But I mean, overall, just remember the game, just locked in and concentrating. So hard, and a lot of course, I'm from that area, so I've had a lot of fans here from. Brea and Chapman, and I mean they were all there, and in fact I saw most of them after we got done, after the game. But I mean I was just locked in, and I was so locked in, Coach, that when I got the 3rd out in the 9th inning, I didn't know it was the 9th inning. I mean it was a ground ball to 3rd. He threw him out, and I turned around to run back, and I looked up, and everybody was running out toward me, and I looked up at the scoreboard then there, Chavez Ravine, and realized I just won the ball game. I didn't know it.
Wow.
I thought I had more innings to go. I had no idea. That's how bad I was concentrating and locked in.
Yeah, nowadays pitchers, after they go 5 innings, they're figuring they're going to get a pat on the back and good job and an attaboy.
But I'll never forget that, And I remember the 7th inning, had first and second, a force out at 3rd on a bunt, and I threw the guy out, and it kind of ran toward that way, and I broke a spike in one of my shoes. It come loose. And it's because Zimmer came out with a trainer, and he goes, well, we'll go get your other pair. I said, I don't have another pair. These are the only shoes I got. He goes, what? I said, I only got 1 pair of shoes. I'm wearing them. And he goes, what are you going to do? I said, pitch. He says, okay, go get them. And he ran back to the dugout. I'll never forget that. And so we Jimmy rigged him, after the inning was over, but that's the only pair of shoes I had, man. I didn't have 2 pairs of spikes.
Not like nowadays. You go down to the big league ball clubs, into the clubhouse. These guys got 12 and 15 pair of shoes. They don't know. They've got so many shoes, they don't know how many they have.
It's crazy. A different color for a different uniform.
That's exactly right. True. So you finished your rookie year 7-6 with a 3.16. So you had to be feeling pretty good about yourself. Your first full year of professional baseball. And then 1974 comes to where you go 8-22 in a 4.45 ERA. Boy, that brought you back down to earth.
A lot of reality to that. 2 halves, 2 tell the story. I want to say I was like 7-13 at All-Star break. So it kind of gives you an idea what the second half was like for me.
Couldn't wait for the season to get
I won 1 game the second half. I know I got shut out a lot, but it was just the way I pitched. It seemed like in the first 5 or 6 innings, I'd be really good. It seemed like I was almost in every game, especially the first half. And then the wheels would come off, and I'd give up a couple of runs, or, wasn't getting a lot of runs. Bullpen would give up a couple more, that type of thing. A little frustrating, but still okay. But then the second half, it really got bad. And I finally lost my confidence, and I really did. You start pitching defensively, and You know, believe me, I went through it, and and it wasn't pretty. It was just and I just knew when I got done with that year, I said, boy, I just got to get away for a little bit and you know, mentally just rest a little bit, get away from it.
Was it anything you did in between 73 and 74? Did you not hit the ground running, or
No,
it's just a lot of tough luck?
Just a lot of tough luck. I mean, a lot of shutouts, and just if I had luck, it was bad. You know, I mean, every ball down the line it hit chalk and was fair. You know, never was foul. You know, but I thought, you know, that winter though, I started understanding a little bit, and when I started looking at everything that I'd done, and you know, why was it always the sixth inning or the seventh inning? I was always getting hit, getting beat up, you know, giving up runs, and just basically elevating the baseball. You know, and to me, I thought, you know, I'm not in shape. My legs weren't in shape, and that was my opinion. I need to do a better job of getting in shape and being more consistent. You can't do that. And Tom Morgan became my pitching coach at that point in time.
Who'd you get fired the year before?
Yeah. That was Bill Posdell.
Bill Posdell.
Yeah. Bill
the
Posdell.
Captain. Didn't they call him the captain?
They called him the captain. Yeah, he didn't have a good year either. We had a bad year. I mean, like, I might have lost 22, but
he had a knot on his head.
Yeah, it was from Sal Bando hit him in BP one day with a line drive. He was down the left field line and whacked him with it, and had that. We called him Big Bo because he had that big spot on there. You know, it was hilarious. You know, and he always wore his hat like this. So he had to because that big knot was always in the way.
That was unbelievable.
Oh, I know. Yeah, Bill was a good man.
So Tom Morgan, talk about Tom Morgan, because he obviously made a difference early on with you.
He did. Yeah, I saw him in January. You know, down at San Diego State, and just wanted to do a little bullpen and get with him a little bit. And he'd reached out to me and wanted to talk to me about a few things. Said he wanted to change a few things. And then when he started going through some of the things he wanted to change, I understood. I bought into what he was talking about. Made sense to me, and how they would all, you know, work together. And also, I mentioned to him, but I got tired of being, you know, a 6-inning pitcher. I need to get stronger. And he said, well, you will under these mechanics. You know, you'll find yourself more consistent, you know, and keeping the ball down, yada yada yada. And I bought into it, and I started working really diligently with him on these mechanics. And by the time we left for spring training, you know, I was ready to go. I was feeling pretty good, and I kept working on these mechanics, and I just worked them again and again and again. But also in the back of my mind, I felt like I had to have a pretty good spring to make the club. 8-22, you know, and I had to build this confidence back up in myself. And you can go back and check the records, but I assure you, I didn't give up an earned run in spring training in 1975. And I probably pitched 30 innings. I didn't give up a run.
And being a ground ball pitcher on those hard Arizona ball fields, that's pretty good.
Amazing. I mean, I threw some amazing games and started really believing in everything that I'd worked so hard with Tom Morgan. And it became kind of a mantra with me as far as my mental preparation and everything for a ball game. And I was ready, but I had such a good spring, though, and I ended up being opening day starting pitcher, which shocked me. I wanted to be good. I didn't think I wanted to be that good. You know.
Well, in the situation, you came in 1975, from an 8-22 season, and you start what arguably, I don't think anybody can really argue this at all, the two best back-to-back seasons of a Padre pitcher in the history of this franchise. You know, I know people will talk about Trevor and all his saves,
sure,
but as far as from start to finish as a starting pitcher, what you did is going to be very difficult to match the way pitchers go about their business now and the way they're coddled and all this and that. But in 1975, you ended up going 20-12, 2.24 earned run average. You won the ERA title that year. You had 18 complete games. And I remember being at San Diego Stadium, your final outing of the year, and all the TV cameras come running out of that first base dugout to mob you because you won the ERA title. And let's face it, Chris Cannizzaro was our first All-Star. Nate Colbert made some teams, but you were the first guy that really put San Diego on the map nationally. You ended up being on the cover of Sports Illustrated, but winning that ERA title was not only big for you, but it was really something the organization to grab a hold of.
It was, and it was great. I was really proud of that. I mean, won my 20th game, the start before beating the Dodgers. First one to ever won 20 games, by a Padre pitcher. But the area title, I knew that Messerschmitt and Seaver were pitching the last day of the year. And I remember Buzzy going, "Hey, you don't have to pitch, and it's yours. The title's yours." I said, "No, it's my day to pitch. I got to go out there. I want to earn this. Whatever happens is going to happen." And I went out and pitched. And I got beat by the Giants. A good ball game, but still. But I won it fair and square, and I felt really good about that.
Yeah, some guys with batting titles, guys have been known to sit out the last day, and sometimes it's backfired, and they've ended up losing the batting title because the other guy goes out and goes 3 for 4, 3 for 3. Let's talk about your All-Star appearance in 1975. You come in, you pitch the 9th inning. I think you were going, if I'm not mistaken, you went against Hal McRae, you went against George Boomer Scott, and you went against Rod Carew to end it. Tell us about that, because you got the save at County Stadium in Milwaukee.
Yeah, well, it was just a tremendous honor, obviously to be there and be the first Padre pitcher ever to be selected for an All-Star team. I was pretty excited about that. And, but I'm out in the bullpen, and it's Andrew Messerschmitt and we're like the last two left, and Andy was sitting over there by the phone, and Walter Alston called down. And
that was his manager. Right?
Yeah. And Walter, told Andy, he goes, "Hey, get that little left-hander up with the curly hair that gets everybody out. I want him to pitch the 9th." Couldn't remember my name, so that's what he called me. So I jumped up, and I got about 25 pitches in, and I'm out the gate, running toward the mound. I mean, it happened so fast, Coach. It was great, and I was all excited, about it, and because even that point in time, I was 11-4, I think was my record, and pitching with a lot of confidence. I felt good about myself and felt good about that inning. I was pumped and excited about being on the mound, And McRae, and that's a little sinker ball and, little nubber, back to me. And then I got, of course, Big Scott, and he can't wait that long. I had him on his front foot and punched him out, with the sinker ball away. And Rod Carew was the one that really got my attention, still being a left-handed hitter. And little did I know, and to be honest with you, I didn't know Gary Carter was in left field. Usually a catching. I don't know what in the world he's doing out of left field, getting a chance to play. I didn't even realize he was out there.
Well, he came up with Montreal when they had very foot catching, and Carter played a little bit of outfield.
Well, I didn't know he could play the outfield. And, but anyway, so I threw him a slider away, and he had a fly ball to Gary Carter for the final out. Didn't take too long, and because I remember Gary came in and. And like you say, always a side story. Well, you got to remember Gordon Carter, his older brother, and I were teammates in American Legion ball in Fullerton, where Gary was our bat boy. He was playing Little League, and Gary Carter was our bat boy when we were playing American Legion baseball. I saw Gary all the time. And then all of a sudden, 10, 12 years later, I see him in the big leagues. He's pretty phenomenal. That he would make that catch in 75 in left field and run and hand me the baseball. It was really cool.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
Unreal.
I want to remind you, we are going to try to take a few questions here as we go through the life and times of Randy Jones. And Randy, coming off the 75 ERA title, the save in the All-Star game, 1976, you come back and put together another 20-plus win campaign, 22-14 with a 2.74, and you win the Cy Young. And that's something that really changed your life.
Yeah, it was something to be runner-up in 75. It was amazing. Tom Seaver, beat me, but I got a lot of votes, and I thought, geez, hey, maybe I can win it in 76. So you're supposed to set goals, and that was kind of my, it was a loose-minded goal, but you go out and be consistent, see if I couldn't win the Cy Young Award. And got off to a great start, and like I say, in the case, the rest of it's on the back of my bubblegum card. But when you're 16-3 at All-Star break, I had a phenomenal first half, just unbelievable. The way the team played, I was getting 3 or 4 runs a game and making it happen. It was just a phenomenal start to the year, and it just kept going.
You get the nod to start the All-Star game at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. You go out there and pitch 3 shutout innings and get the win. And I've always been impressed. You get the save one year, you come back, you start.
That's amazing.
And you get the win. You pitched 4 innings in an All-Star game.
Yep.
And didn't give up a run.
That's right. Yeah, and it's really unique. You know, when you
I don't think you're going to give up a run anytime soon.
No more home runs either. I like that. You know, but I just think overall it was such a great feeling. You know, to represent the Padres and start the game like that. And it was nice because, you know, Winfield was there, and John McNamara was one of the coaches, our manager. He was in the dugout. But I just remember pitching those first 3 innings, and I wasn't even breathing hard yet, Coach. I wanted to go more. I was just getting into a little bit of a groove and I was done. I was done for the night. But I'll just never forget that. And, you know, just a great all-star team. And, you know, you got Rose at third base, Concepcion at short. I got Morgan at second base, Steve Garvey's at first. You know, I got Johnny Bench behind the plate. And somebody said, who's in the outfield? I said, I don't care. I didn't need him. You know, I was good right there. I was pretty happy.
Well, you finished the year throwing 25 complete games,
yes.
And we're going to get into that. But we do have our first question of the night. It's from George, I believe probably in New York. Thoughts on the 2 young rookies that are setting baseball on their ear right now, Randy?
Amazing.
Cody Bellinger up there with the Dodgers, and Eric Judge, the big outfielder with the New York Yankees.
Big boys,
These guys have been incredible.
They're incredible, unbelievable. And you're big guys. And, hey, number one right there, nobody's doing it better than these 2 young kids right now. They're phenomenal to watch them. I still think there's going to have to be adjustments made. Yeah, once again, like I talked about, we can go on and on about this, but it's all about the fastball. How hard can you throw? And these kids will turn it around. They'll turn this stuff around if you're just throwing it and you don't know how to pitch. You know, and one thing, a pitcher they can probably have troubles with. You know, and sooner or later, the scouting report's going to get out, and they're going to struggle a little bit. But they're going to have to make adjustments. You know, but with the size and the stature of both of these guys, and you know, I've seen Bellinger, you know, up close, and I mean they're the real deal. The Judge is huge. He's a big man. But I think overall, there's still going to have to be adjustments made, and you know, pitch them a little bit more careful. But I tell you what, they're not fouling them back right now. Neither one of those kids are.
I want to get back to the '76 season because you threw 25 complete games.
Yeah.
And here you are at the pinnacle of your profession. You win the greatest award that can be bestowed on any professional pitcher, the Cy Young. But you took a great toll that year.
You did.
Your last start of the year. Talk a little bit about your last start and what happened.
Coach, you know, I had 315 innings at that point in time, or 314. Like you said, 25 complete games. My arm was tired, and it was telling me it was tired.
And that's coming off 18 the prior year.
That is correct. And you know, and I didn't discount myself in between starts. I pitched every 4th day and threw extensive bullpens in between that. I threw a lot of pitches, you know, but for a reason. I didn't want my arm overly strong. You know, when it was, you got to be careful about that. So you know, I want to take the edge off my arm so that sinker ball worked a little bit better by design. But you know, I remember when you're 26 years old, you're kind of invincible. Yeah, my arm was sore, and it was tired. But when I went out to warm up for the game that day, and you know, I had good stuff. I had really good stuff. Oh, geez. I go, well, it's the same stuff. It looks good. And so I went out and started the game against the Cincinnati Reds. And then finally the 3rd inning, I threw 1 pitch, a double play ball, you know, and it's just something kind of went off my arm, you know, like a rubber band snapping. And waited a minute. There was an argument at first base, and then it got a little bit sore. Threw another pitch, and I called Johnny Mack, and I said, I'm done. That's got to be it. I'm out of bullets. And I walked off the mound. And my arm was really, really tired, but, you know, hey, it'd been a hell of a year, and, you know, no complaints. And then I didn't find out, I think it was 2-3 days later, up in L.A., we were in there, and I was getting checked by the doctor. And he was checking my arm, and I was talking to somebody, and he told me to make a muscle. And I did, and he said, no. I said, make a muscle, and I looked at him and I said, I am. And I looked down and my bicep was gone.
Wow.
And quite the shock. And make a long story short, thought it was a tendon problem. So now Dr. Joe and Curlin did the surgery on my arm, and I woke up, up to my surprise, and they said couldn't fix it, and I snapped a nerve. in my pitching arm, and they said, Randy, we can't fix the nerve. It's got to regenerate. It's got to grow back by itself. So I looked at him. I said, you mean if it grows back, I get to pitch again? If it doesn't grow back, I'm done. He goes, exactly. I said, okay, now I know the ground rules, but thank God it finally it grew back, and I was able to continue pitching. Maybe not to the degree where I was there at that point in time, Coach, but I look back and if I'm not good at that.
Well, you were able to pitch another 6 years in the big
Right.
leagues.
You know,
I mean, you never had the success after that
No.
you had in '75 and '76, but you were on a major league roster. You spent 4 more years here in San Diego.
Yeah.
They end up trading you to the Mets,
Yeah.
And you finished your career with the Mets. And the other thing I didn't realize that after you were done with the Mets, you actually signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
I got invited to camp with the Pirates, and I went up there and went back to Florida in spring training. Arm just, it was the same result that I had my 2 years with the Mets. That nerve just would not let me pitch. As much as I wanted to in my heart and my brain, my arm was saying, we're done. Like, we can't do it anymore. And finally I had to come home.
We've got another question from Austin P. What should we expect from the Padres in the second half, Randy?
I think you got to continue to enjoy these young kids, and hopefully they'll be productive. I personally like where the organization is as far as focus, what they're doing in the minor leagues. I think the talent that we have down there, we have a lot of it, and they're competing against each other, but also they're getting the professional instruction they need to become Major League Baseball players. And a lot of these guys right now are getting that right here in the big leagues. But I'm seeing some guys, even in Margot and some of the guys that are coming in Swahe, I'm seeing signs where these guys can be, is good, solid Major League Baseball players. I'm not talking about MVPs, but the Hunter Renfroe is doing his thing, and he's learning that every 4 at bats, and they're chewing him up with some of those fastballs and sliders. In Myers himself, I think he's still growing quite a bit, and we have a lot of guys like that. I think Austin Hedges has been awesome behind the plate. I miss seeing Dickerson all year with a bad back.
That was a
I
tough
really
blow for the Poway High Star.
Yeah, and a tough blow for the Padres, and Perdomo and some of these guys. They continue to learn, and that curve is on its way up. And I hope the second half is going to be the same. Yeah, it's going to be tough, but that's all right. They're learning. They're going to get better, and I really believe that.
Got a lot of questions coming in. Barry A., who was your toughest out? Who was the toughest guy to go against?
It seemed like there's so many, but overall, in our division, I'd have to say Steve Garvey and the Dodgers. Because I pitched against him 5 times a year. It seemed like I saw a lot of Garvey. He was the only guy that seemed like he could read my mind, knew what I was going to throw. It drive me nuts. So I had to play a little game, but Garvey, is that number 1 guy. Like George Foster made me nervous. Richie Allen made me nervous with the Phillies. Richie Zisk, with the Pirates.
The Pirates had all kinds of guys.
Oh, yeah, but there's certain guys, that I had to keep my eye on and be really careful around. But I got to start with Garvey. Yeah, he was the number 1 guy. Saw him a lot, and had to play some games with him a little bit.
I'm gonna throw out a couple names here, and I just want you to respond the first thing you think of.
All right.
Pete Rose.
Easy out. Yep.
Well, for a lot of people that don't know and remember, Pete Rose was a switch hitter, and Pete normally would hit right-handed against a left-hand pitching Randy Jones, but he got so frustrated, he turned around and hit left-handed against him.
He did. He tried that one Sunday.
How'd that work out?
That didn't work out well at all. And most time, I got into his head as a hitter. Sinker ball, I'd get him like 2-1 or 2-0, Coach, and he knew I had to throw him a fastball, and he's looking fastball. Problem is, when you're throwing a 75-mile-an-hour sinker, he's on his front foot hitting a ground ball somewhere. And I'd drive the poor guy nuts. And as a right-handed hitter, I didn't throw him any sliders. Why waste a slider on him? I just throw him that sinker ball, and a lot of them. So when he came up there left-handed that day, the first time, because I looked at him, I go, you sure you want to do this? And he says, you just pitch. And I said, all right. And I threw him 3 sliders on the outside corner and struck him out. He never moved the bat. But he'd never really seen my slider either, especially from the left side, obviously. But, he just walked back to the dugout, like shaking his head, going, well, that didn't work real well, But I did have his number. I'm afraid I did.
Got a lot of questions coming in. Philip G., Baseball changes power arms versus actual pitchers. That's an outstanding question.
It's a great question, and I think what you need today is a blend of both. You need to get a blend of both. I mean, I would give anything. You know, give me a couple of guys throwing 97, 98 miles an hour, coach. He can have the number 1 spot, and the other one, number 3 spot, and put me in that 2 spot. You know, with my little 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour in my control. I'd love to be there. How do you make that adjustment from one night to the next? I'd have everybody and their mother on their front foot hitting ground balls everywhere and take advantage of that. But I think it's what you have to do. The power arms are in, strikeouts are up, home runs are up. It makes sense. You know, they can turn around 98 miles an hour, but it's basically the guys that really know how to pitch. That's the ones you really, that's the Zach Greinke, that's the Kershaw. And that you know, all these guys, you talk about Scherzer, who's starting the All-Star game. These guys know how to pitch. There's a difference when you watch them in their control, their command, how they change speeds. It's just different. You know what I'm talking about. And anybody who watches baseball a lot, you'll see it. You can see the difference. You get a young guy with a great arm, but you know.
When you see a guy like Kershaw and a guy like Max Scherzer, they're throwback guys.
Oh, yeah.
Because those are guys, when they start the game, they want to shake hands with the catcher
Yes.
at the end of the night. They don't want anybody to come take the ball from them.
That's right. And they're a good, strong, solid 7-inning guys on the most part in those scenarios. And if you like, Baumgartner was the same way with the Giants. And I think overall, you see a lot of these power arms, but they have to learn how to pitch. And you and I had the luxury of seeing Kershaw go through a few years with the Dodgers when he was up there. Remember?
Stripes.
Yeah, you know, he had to earn it. And boy, when he finally put it all together, you know, it was something to behold. But before that, there were some rough edges. Yeah, good curveball, didn't know where it was going half the time. And, you know, he'd spike it, and another wild pitch, and things like that. But he finally put it all together. And that's what a lot of these younger guys have to do. Those secondary pitches, you got to get better command of them. You know, it's not just all dead red fastballs. That's not going to work.
I knew when I had Randy on as my first guest that we could go on and on and on. I know we're getting close to the end of the hour, but I want to try to get in as much. And there are 2 people I want to ask you about. One gentleman I knew very well. You knew him a lot better than I did, and that's Jerry Coleman. And you used to go down, you'd leave me in the press box. You go down some nights and sit with Jerry and talk ball with him. And
I loved
it. You miss him out at the ballpark.
So much. I really respect the man, and I always did. And I really enjoyed my time when I got opportunities to go down there and watch a ball game with him.
He was the best.
He was the best. He really was. And you know, old school principles, you know, with a new game. But boy, he loved the game of baseball. He, you know, loved his country. He was just a great, great man. And I was inspired when I got to talk to Jerry, and you know, whatever it might be. But he was always there for me, and I always appreciated that man.
And the last gentleman I wanted to ask you about, I never knew him, but I went and watched his team play a lot, and that's Ray Kroc. Can you talk a little bit about Ray Kroc as well as his wife, Joan Kroc?
Yeah, well, Ray was a great man. I mean, he saved baseball in San Diego, and in '74 we were on our way. You know, but he had a real passion. He had a real passion for business and life. You know, in baseball, he loved baseball. Of course, he'd love to have the Cubs and, you know, be in the Chicago area. But, you know, he's proud of having the Padres and tried to do, you know, what he thought was right at that point in time. But I enjoyed all my conversations with that man when we get together. And most of the time we just talk sports, and he'd ask me a million questions, yeah, about the game and baseball and things. And a lot of laughs and just a lot of fun. He just enjoyed life. And Mrs. Kroc was right there with him. They both enjoyed it very much. And you know, it was sad to lose him when we did. I'd like to see him sitting there enjoying a championship.
Hey, tell everyone everything Randy Jones is involved with now. You've been working for the Padres for many years out in the community, doing some great things, but you've always got something going. Talk a little bit about your foundation.
Well, the foundation, the Randy Jones Foundation, Coach. I started the Randy Jones Invitational Golf Tournament, and instead of trying to do a one-day golf tournament, scramble tournament, you help one charity, I came up with the idea of trying to help 350 charities. And how I did that is my golf tournament has 1,400 golfers in it, and it's a free round of golf. But the only way you can qualify to come to mine is you got to come in first, second, or third in a charity scramble event. That's how you get invited to mine for free. Then I came up with this great idea, and it's been a lot of fun for 5 years. And from that, I started the foundation because I wanted to help some military kids and make a difference in their lives. And I'm talking about those military kids whose parents are deployed somewhere over in the Far East or wherever they might be. And these kids are home, by themselves without that parent. So I'm inviting them down to ball games to come watch BP and, buy them some dinner and enjoy a ball game with their mom, or maybe the dad just got back. They take them fishing, you do golf clinics with them. Talking about maybe doing some scholarships for some of these young athletes that maybe won't have the opportunity to play travel ball or play golf as much as they want to. Well, I can help them do that. Maybe further their goals and their dreams in sports. And I want to make that difference.
Well, Randy, I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. I knew we were going to have a lot of great baseball talk. I want to thank the audience out there, because I know there were a lot of other questions we weren't able to get to, but this is something we can do again.
Yeah, well, we can do it again. I'd love to, Coach.
Oh, it's good to get back together.
It is, man. I love talking shop with you. You know that.
Oh, man, I can't begin to tell the fans out there. We have always had fun on the air, but we've had a lot more fun sitting there watching Padre baseball in the press box for years.
They have no idea how many hours we'd spend just talking shop
and getting there early.
Get there earlier, even late after the show, sitting there
always
talking.
Trying to find we're always trying to be a problem solver for the San Diego Padres.
Yeah, or find that silver lining.
And we were never afraid to express our opinion.
I think we were pretty good at that.
Hey, Randy, thanks so much.
Thanks,
great
Coach.
to see you off the disabled list
and
bouncing back. And it's great to have Randy not only healthy again, but back doing all the things he does in this San Diego community. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to our show, Throwback Sports, on the Smarter San Diego Facebook page. We'll look forward to bringing you another show real soon. Good night, everyone.